welcome back to Questions Over Coffee. I'm your host, Kevin Smith. It's good to see you again. Want a cup of coffee? Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you don't miss anything that's coming up on Questions Over Coffee. If you have a question or a comment, leave it in the section below and we'll get to it just as fast as we can. Today's question is, what should our attitude be when we go to God in prayer? This is an extremely important question because we want God to hear our prayers. We're not just talking to thin air, you know. So what kind of an attitude do we need to have so that He'll hear us? Let's take a look at what Scripture says. Let's take a look at Luke chapter 18. We're going to consider a parable that Jesus told about prayer and about two very different people from two very different backgrounds. One was a religious leader who should be, in good standing with God. I mean, after all, he's giving people God's law, and standing for God. The other is, a tax collector. He's considered by the people to be working for the enemy. He's working for the Roman government. So in many ways, these people, these tax collectors, are lumped with a group that the Pharisees and the holy people would call sinners. But let's consider what Jesus says in this parable. This is Luke chapter 18, and again, we're going to be reading verses 9 through 14. Let's read together. And he also told this parable to some people who trusted in themselves that they were righteous and viewed others with contempt. 2 men went up into the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee stood and was praying this to himself: God, I thank you that I am not like other people, swindlers, unjust, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week. I pay tithes of all that I get. But the tax collector, standing some distance away, was even unwilling to lift his eyes to heaven, but was beating his breast, saying, God, be merciful to me, the sinner. I tell you, this man went to his home house justified rather than the other. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, but he who humbles himself will be exalted. Okay, so you see a very stark difference here. The Pharisee, who, like we mentioned before, was the religious leader who should have been in good standing with God, should have been a very dedicated, holy man. What does God want? I'll do it kind of person, is praying this prayer. Jesus says praying to himself, and in many ways, it sure looks like he's praying about himself. Basically, God, you're lucky to have me on your side. I mean, after all, God, I don't lie, I don't cheat, I'm not unfaithful, I don't steal. Oh, and by the way, I fast and I pay my tithes. You're lucky to have me, God. Yeah. Who's he praying to? It sounds to me like he may be addressing God, but he sure is tooting his own horn, so to speak. Basically, this man has forgotten that everything he has comes from God. Everything he is, including his position, comes not because he is awesome, but because God has given it to him. Now, he has made some choices to become a better teacher of the law, let's say, or to hopefully kick some sins out of his life and to dedicate himself better to God. But everything he has is because God has blessed him. You know, he doesn't pray, God, help me to be like you. He doesn't pray, thank you for your help in all that I have and all that I need. This guy, this religious leader that Jesus is talking about, he has absolutely no humility. In fact, you could go so far to say he doesn't even have a clue as to what is real, as to who God is. But you fast forward to the other fella, the tax collector, the one that everybody, despises, let's say. You know, I mean, even today, we don't like to see a tax collector come around, but we don't despise them like they did back then. You know, this man, he knows he needs help. And he comes to God, you know, God, I don't deserve to even be addressing you. Help me. I need you. Help me, please. I mean, he's begging for help. And Jesus says, the humble man, that's the man that will be exalted. The one who exalts himself, yeah, he's going to take a fall. He will end up being humbled. But also, what Jesus says is the tax collector, the one that everybody in the audience, as Jesus is telling this story, would have said, you don't even deserve to be addressing God. What Jesus says is, he is the one. That tax collector is the one that went to his home justified before God. He is the one. So what should our attitude in prayer be? Quite simply, humble. Whatever we have comes from God. Whatever we are is because God allows us to be. We need to remember that we need God's help. We need to remember that he is not lucky to have us. We are blessed to be able to approach the throne in prayer. So I have a question for you. What do you do to prepare your heart and your mind to go before God in prayer? Leave me a comment in the section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you don't miss anything that's coming up on Questions Over Coffee. Thank you for our time together. I look forward to the next time. Keep pressing forward.